So, the first year of my recovery, after coming out of back surgery, going to liver treatment, working, my wife and my children were still in my life. My wife has just been one that has decided that I'm never going to leave you no matter what, and our family is most important. We had our families go to a family program at the Betty Ford Children's Program in order to give them a voice and be able to process their feelings of anything they may have witnessed, which was so important to me and important to my recovery as I went through the journey of the first year of my recovery, which was still so much pain, so much hurt, and a lot of fear. After I was finished with my day labor and I just wasn't able to work because I had a back brace on, Troy gave me a great suggestion. He said, why don't you go back to the place that it all began, at the rescue mission in Indio? But this time I want you to be a volunteer. So every Tuesday and every Thursday, I would just go down there and just be around the place where I first found my recovery and I used to work. So I would pick up trash, do the gardening, talk to people, and that's where the beginning of my healing process came. I knew that I had to go back to where it all started, where it ended, and keep working with others, even though deep in my heart when I was in treatment and I was going through everything, I said, I'm never going to work with another person. I'm never going to help somebody get clean and sober, because I still had a lot of anger within inside of my heart. And so I was just trying to find a little bit of work at the time to provide for Francis and my children. And with Troy's help, I realized sometimes there's a lot more than just earning money, can be volunteering or giving back to an organization or trying to help somebody without wanting anything in return. All along in the first year, I still had court cases. I got into a lot of criminal trouble. I would have to go to court like once every couple months with a lot of long postponements. But there was always the hope that maybe a judge would see what I did and that I'm clean and sober again. And I'm going into my first year and my second year of my recovery, and maybe there was a hope they would have mercy on me. As I was getting into the second year of recovery, I still didn't have a job. And I remember I was hiking down a trail and I was just questioning. I was like, why? Why can't I get a job? Why can't I provide for my family? I'm going to meetings. I'm clean and sober. I'm on the right track again. Where have I gone wrong? And I got a call from somebody at the rescue mission that said, Mark, do you want to work part-time? I said, I'll take it, whatever it is. And that's how I got back to working in the field, was driving a truck on the weekends, picking up all the donations and bringing it back for our kitchen and to give out food boxes. It was a humble beginning, and it was what was needed in my life. I think so many times when I work around there, I hear people say, why doesn't people just change their lives and give up those drugs? Why don't they just stop using? Why don't they stop drinking? And I just wanted to share that if we were to close our eyes right now and we would think about the time the most we were sick in our lives, we had the biggest cold, or some people fell with COVID and we just couldn't get out of bed and we were in so much pain. And we were running back and forth to the bathroom every 5 minutes, just sick, not being able to move. I try and describe that as asking somebody to detox, where the pain is so great. And sometimes in our addiction, the pain is so great, mentally, physically, emotionally, that we're just stuck and we can't move. And I think back and I look around and I see all the homeless people and all the homeless people I work with on the streets. They all say the same, Mark, can you promise me that it'll be painless? And I can't. I can't promise them it'll be painless. And until we improve on that, I don't think we're ever going to move the needle and try and make a difference in our society with the homeless problem we face. Pain is the greatest teacher. They always say that it's what we know where not to go in life and what not to do is through pain. And all of my pain and all of my tragedies and all the stuff I've experienced in life, I could say, I can internalize it and go, okay, I'm just so mad at this and my childhood was horrible and I never got a shot, and all that pain and all that frustration and all the horrible things I've witnessed, I could just turn it against myself. and use drugs and drink and do things that are just out of control. Or I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all that around and I'm just going to serve others. And that's been my life's work. I decided in my first year of recovery, heading into my second year of recovery, yes, I'm going to meetings and I'm doing everything I have to do, and I'm a volunteer and I'm a coach for the local Little League football teams, but I need to give back. There was a reason why I went through everything in my life, and that is to help another person. And so I work with the homeless. I work on outreach teams. 9 different cities we set up. I started working back and getting more into a counseling role where I was able to work with the homeless once again. And it's important when a person wants to know, well, you don't get where I'm coming from, and you don't know what it's like to be an addict. You don't know what it's like to be addicted to heroin. You don't know what it's like to go to jail or to go to prison. And I could look down and look them straight in the eye and say, yes, I do, because I've been there. I've been exactly where you're at, and I know what it takes to get out of it. And I think that's what makes the difference, is when we have that connection and they know that I've been there and they have been there, and together we can get them the help they need. We've gone under bridges in the desert, and that was the second year where I was just starting to get back to where I was supposed to be and where I went away from. But all along knowing that my job does not define who I am, and what I do doesn't define who I am. I'm a father, I'm a parent, I'm a Little League coach, I'm a friend, I'm a sponsor, and I do a lot of things outside of my work to protect my own sobriety and to protect myself and what I'm doing, so I make sure that I never ever return. Up until this point, in the first to second year, I'm still living at a sober living house because I felt like it wasn't enough time. I needed to be sure that I was solid. So my wife and my kids, she was living in an apartment, I was living in a sober living house, because I was just like, I don't know if we want to bring it back together. Plus, I'm still fighting and working to get through this court battle. And the whole time trying to find a way to talk to our children about it, because we just don't know what could happen. But I just wanted to just keep having faith and knowing, you know what, I'm going to stay clean and sober. I'm going to keep working with others. I'm going to keep making a difference in my community. I'm going to go out there and share my story with as many people as that can hear what I'm saying, to try and get them in to change their lives. And the day was coming close, and we kept fighting my case and fighting my case. And I went to court something like 25 times. And this is all in my recovery, still staying clean and sober, and still working with others in hope that the judge would have mercy on me. And I remember going back and forth to court, and it was just weighing on my wife and weighing on my children. And my life coach, Troy, was like, Mark, just hang in there and keep going on. And I said, one day I woke up and I said, I can't move on with my life. I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do, Francis. And she just said, Mark, what do you want to do? I just said, I just want to surrender. I just want to surrender to the courts. I just want to go in there and just raise my hand and say, I'm done fighting. And right there, everything changed for me. And I was somewhere around 3 years clean and sober. And I remember calling my attorney and said, I'm done fighting. I can't fight anymore. I have a wife, I have 2 children at home, and I can't move on with my life with this hanging over. So one day we went to court and we pled to the court. And I pled mercy, and I asked him, please have mercy, not just for me, but for my children and my wife. And I would like to say there's a rainbow at the end of this story, but there wasn't. At the time, they just said, no, Mark, you're going to have to do 300 days in jail. And I just was so taken back. I said, I'm 3 years clean and sober. I've done everything I can. I've changed my life, but there was still a price to pay. I couldn't understand why, but I know now that there's a price to pay for everything we do, and I was willing to pay the price. And I accepted the plea for 300 days in county jail in hopes that we could write some more letters, hire some people to evaluate my risk, and maybe there would be a break. Maybe the judge would just come around and say it's going to be okay. And here we are heading up to the court date, and I'm at home hoping I get that call from my attorney's office to say, you know what, they're going to give you a break. You don't really have to go into jail. And I remember getting the call from Kelly the night before, and she said, Mark, you have to prepare yourself. And I was preparing the couple weeks before that because I had to make sure that my wife and kids were going to be okay, that the bills were paid, that there was enough food in the house, that Francis had enough money, and we made all the arrangements, and we made family members. We put everybody on notice. We knew that the day would come. And I remember that call came in at about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And she said, Mark, you're going to have to go in tomorrow. And I remember going to the bathroom, and I locked the door so the kids wouldn't hear me cry. Because I was like, man, I changed my life. I got back over to the right side, and now I got to go to jail, and I'm going to leave my kids alone again. And I remember promising my son, I was like, Junior, I'm never going back. I'm always going to be here for you. After we got back together and we were in the Ranch Recovery Center, and I told that part of my story, and that was like my commitment to my children. And I knew I had to do the right thing and explain it to my son. And I opened up the door and I went to his room, and he's in his little cubby, his little, we have twin beds, and he's got a little hideaway in there. And I said, hey, bud, can I talk to you? And he's just playing on his tablet. I said, Junior, I need to talk to you. I need to tell you about what's going to happen tomorrow, because your daddy has to go pay a price for something I did wrong in life. And it's time, Junior. And he kept staring down at the tablet, and he would look at me, and I said, Junior, please turn around and look at me. I want to see you. I want to tell you I'm just so sorry. And he said, Dad, I can't. I said, why? He goes, because every time I think about it, I just want to cry, because I don't want to lose my daddy. And I said, Junior, you're never going to lose me. I just got to go handle this. He said, okay, Dada. He said, but we're going to make a deal. I said, we'll make a deal. And my son is 10, mind you, 9 at the time. He said, Dada, when this is all over, you promise me that we'll never talk about this again. And I said, deal, Junior. I called Troy and I said, Troy, it looks like I have to go in. And Troy said, Mark, you got to do what you have to do, because it's going to be a message for the others that you're going to help in your life. That sometimes you have to do the hard things in life. You got to lift the heavy weights even when you don't want to. You can't run, Mark. You've been running your whole life. You have to own this. I said, you're right, Troy. So I prepared myself the best I could, and in the morning I got dressed up the best I could. I shirt and tie. And I went to Troy's house, and we had to drive all the way to Blythe, California, which is in the middle of the desert. And I tell that part because I want to explain something that was so moving to me. We got in his car. He said, are you ready to go? I said, I'm as ready as I could be. I kissed the children, kissed my wife goodbye, and I told her, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And I remember driving all the way out to Blythe, and if you've ever driven out to Blythe, there's nothing but desert. Nothing but desert. And we get so caught up in our lives and the busyness of our lives and always trying to achieve something and move forward in life. But when you know where you're going is not going to be good and you're going to jail, all bets are off. We drove across that desert where there was nothing but desert. For miles, you can't see anything. And I thought about 3 things: my wife and both my children. And that was all that mattered that day. All that mattered. And I went to court, and the judge took me into custody. And I'll tell you, that's the first time I've ever been clean and sober going to jail. And even the bailiff said, I almost feel bad arresting you because you're probably the best dressed person I've ever taken into custody. And I remember having they take you and they have to book you. And she said, Mark, I don't know what you're feeling and what you're going through, but that judge does not hate you. I said, I think he's pretty mad at me. He said, no, you'll see, Mark. I said, okay. And they booked me into Blythe County Jail, and I was facing 270 days. And I remember going those long, cold hallways where you got to change out all your clothes. And there were so many messages being sent to me along the way that I didn't understand. Like the main jailer said, you know, Mark, don't get too comfortable around here because you'll probably get fed kicked. I don't know anything about that stuff. I'm just here to do my time. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to pick up a case. I just want to love my family and just get through this. Made a couple calls to Francis, and I just went from cell to cell to cell to cell. I'm like, God, I never got housed. At 2 o'clock in the morning, they woke me up. They said, well, we're transferring you all the way back to Indio. I'm like, why? I'm here. 2 o'clock in the morning, they transferred me all the way to the Indio County Jail in a van with all kinds of people that were facing life sentences. And just, it was an interesting couple of days for sure. So I just drove all the way out there. I was so tired. I wasn't able to sleep. I was on concrete bench to concrete jail to this, the rattling of the jail, the cages, you're in your orange jumpsuit. I'm just trying to process everything. And they get me all the way up in the jail and they put me in another freezing cold cell. And I'm just sitting there. I don't even want to call home because all Francis did the first time is just cry. And I told her, baby, don't cry. Everything's going to be okay. We're back together. And we're a family. And no matter what, we're not going to give up. We're not going to turn away from each other. I'm going to be okay, and everything's going to work out no matter what. And I remember just being in from cell to cell. They never housed me. And I remember sitting on that cold bench with a massive headache. And I slid down on the ground and I said, God, I had it all wrong my whole life. All the pain, all the abuse of drugs and alcohol, in and out of jails. I had it all wrong. It's all wrong. Drugs and alcohol are not the answer to anything. All the pain we experience in our life is not the answer. The answer is that we have to just serve others. We have to use these two hands not to consume the world, not to just always be trying to get more. We need to use what we have as individuals, as people. And it was my promise right there that for the rest of my life, I would help others. And shortly after that, a couple people came by, and then this jailer came to my door. And I'm approaching the second day, and the jailer says, Mr. McGowan. I go, yes. She goes, come with me. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm finally going to get a cell, and I can get some sleep. She has my clothes that I dressed out in. And I look at her, I go, what's that? And she goes, here's your clothes. Go ahead and get dressed. You're going home. I said, what? She goes, you're being federally kicked. I go, I don't understand that. I'm not getting dressed. I'm already thinking, I'm not going to get in trouble. I hope they're not going to say I'm trying to escape or something. I don't want to get dressed. She came back again. She said, you better get dressed right now or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I said, okay, I don't understand this. So I get dressed in my clothes and I go all the way downstairs and they do all my stuff to release me. I'm like, why am I being released when I just got here? And I remember being in another cell and this big jailer, this big sergeant walks up, big burly guy. He says, Mr. McGowan, is this you? I go, yes, sir. He said, well, we don't have room for you anymore in the jail. So we're going to federally release you. We have a judge's order to release you today. I said, excuse me? You're going to release me? Why would you release me? He said, sir, when you get released, do me a favor. Go back to what you were doing. And I'd never seen him again. And all I thought was, go back to what you were doing, and that's just helping other people get clean and sober. And I walked all the way down this long hallway, and I could see the street right there. And I have all my clothes, and I'm like, I don't even want to call my wife, because if this is a joke, I'm going to break her heart. I didn't even call her. I couldn't even believe it. And I got outside, and I looked back, and the door shut. And I called her. I said, hey, baby, what are you doing? She goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm walking down the street. She said, that's impossible. I said, I'm walking down the street in Indio. And she was at the park playing with Troy's kids because they made a commitment to my family that they would check in on Francis every day and make sure my children had enough food and that the rent was paid and that our children would have love while I was in jail. And so they were at the park with Junior and Ellie. And Junior's like, Mom, what's wrong? What's wrong with Dad? She said, nothing. We're going to go pick him up. And they drove all the way out to Indio. And Junior's just can't believe it. He gets out of the car and I'm sitting on the curb and I just still can't even believe I'm out. And he runs up to me and that little kid gives me the biggest hug ever. Almost knocked me on the ground. I said, but Junior, he goes, Dada, remember our deal. I go, what's that? We're never talking about this again. Now let's go home. And that was it. And it was just amazing how fast it happened. 1 minute I thought I was going in again. And they all knew and they just walked me straight out the door. And I did exactly what that jailer said, go back to what you were doing. And when I went back, I had a new fire in my stomach to help even more people. It was like, that was just God's way of saying, look, Mark, you're in the right place at the right time to help a lot of people. And I just started moving up at the rescue mission. Our family came together after that. I know that with the court case behind me and I knew that jail wasn't the outcome, it was finally the day to leave the sober living home. And we left the sober living, I left the sober living house and our family was back together again under one roof after almost 4.5 years when I lost our home and I went into treatment. I was like 3 years into it and we were finally together again as one family. And there was a lot of financial struggles along the way, a lot of stuff I had to pay off because I believe that something else my coach taught me, that if you make the debt, you have to go back and pay the debt. So we had a lot of financial struggles. Everybody has financial struggles, but we just worked on through it. I kept going to my meetings. I'm clean and sober, working with others, went back to college, made up a bunch of courses, went back to get a certification in drug and alcohol counseling so that I would have more of a professional side of me in my counseling. We worked on cooling centers. We developed a outreach team to serve 9 different cities, 2 trucks all day long, just helping the homeless, helping the homeless, helping the homeless. And our family came back together for the first time in a long time. And that was just an amazing moment for me to realize that sometimes in life, we have to do the hard things and we have to pay a heavy price. And Troy has stayed with me the whole time, helping me with my self-care program, teaching me how to be a better man, a better father, a better human being. And I know through that whole thing that I'm just a different human being when I help others. I know there's so much talk about the homeless, so much talk about addiction, so much talk about alcoholism. And I know that we have to stop and realize that so many times we just want to give up on people and we want to give up hope. We can't. We have to work together and know that each and every one of us has a unique story to tell. I have my unique story, somebody else has their unique story, and we never know when we're the right person talking to somebody to make change and it'll work. A lot of times it's just getting to know a person, a homeless person, somebody who's addicted, somebody who's working the street, a prostitute, whatever it may be, that they're all part of our race, they're all part of us. And so when I help people, I always help people, and I know for a fact that I'm no better and no worse than the person I'm helping. That each individual is different. Recovery does work. People can change. If I can change, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a heroin addict, I've been homeless, I've lived underneath Jackson Street Bridge, I've been beaten up, I've been in prison, I've been around gangs, I've been involved with all the hard, horrible stuff in life that many people said, this guy's no good, just lock him away for life. But for some reason, people saw something different in me, and they kept trying and they kept trying. And yes, I had to make a decision to change. But not only did I make a decision to change, to stop drinking, to stop using, to stop all the criminal behavior, but I made a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to go back out there and I'm going to help as many people as I can, no matter what their condition is, whether it's this tent on the corner with somebody living in it asking for help. I want to be there. I want to answer the call because that call was given to me. And I realized a long time ago that these hands were meant to help. If I do one thing right in this world, every last breath I take, I want to help a homeless person. Because I have seen and I've witnessed the incredible stories of people coming in addicted, homeless, struggling. They've been in and out of prisons. They get in, they get clean, they get sober, they change their ways, they find a purpose, they find substance in their life. They know that they're better than everything that everybody has told them. They go out and get a job. They learn how to save money. They get an apartment. They find a place to live, and they change their life. But it's more important that we go back and we share that story with somebody else that then can change their lives. And I know at the end of the day, all the horrible stuff I've experienced in life is for one purpose. So I can sit across the table from somebody and say, I totally get what you're coming from. I totally understand because I've been there. And I'm just so grateful for the people along the way that have helped me. Like my wife never gave up on me. She never turned her back on me. She never stopped believing in me. And she never left me. Francis is like a rock in my life. And Troy Anderson, my life coach, and so many people along the way. But Troy has never judged me, never ever looked down on me, always took me for the person I am and see the potential I am. I just want to, make sure that I'm the best version of me, authentic and living up to my full potential so my children can see that in me. Because that's the other thing, is that we have to remember our children and the next generation. And how do we make a difference in people today and in recovery and in treatment and homelessness? Because there's a lot of little children following them around. That the children is our future. And so we have to remember that everything we do today, we have to live for our children. I live for my children, but I also raise them in a certain way. And I always made a promise to myself that every morning I wake up, I always tell them, I love you both, and not today. I'm going to go out and help as many people as I can, because I still believe in people. I still believe that human beings can change, and nobody's ever going to tell me anything different. All the news, all the horrible stories, I believe in the human spirit, the nature and the desire to change. And I always told people ask me all the time, I go, why is it with all this homeless people, Mark? And I tell people all the time, I say, you know what? I highly doubt when we were in 5th and 6th grade or any of these people, any of these adults grew up saying, you know what? I hope and aspire to be homeless, to be addicted, to have to sell my body, to have to get into fist fights, to join a gang, to go to jail. None of them grew up saying that that's what I hope and wish to be. That's the answer. Every little kid, every little boy, every little girl has dreams. They have aspirations, but something went wrong along the way, whether it be trauma, whether it be something that they saw in their parents, something that they're emulating, something they think is cool. And then along the way, a series of bad choices, problems, mental illness, diagnosis, they land homelessness. There they are, homeless on the corner. But nobody ever first sought out in life to be that at the end. I don't believe that, because I don't ever want to give up on another person, and I never will, because people didn't give up on me. They didn't give up on me because they knew that I had potential far greater than the way I was living. And so inside of me, that's my life work. All I want to do is work with the homeless, find the next Mark McGowan out there, and hopefully they'll do great things in their community. And that's what I just want to encourage everybody to believe. We have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in our neighbor. We have to believe in our children. We have to believe that people can change. Not only can they change, but they can go back and make a great difference in life. But if we don't believe in that change and we stop believing in other people, we're just going to give up on everybody as a whole. And I don't want to do that. And if you're seeing this today, find somebody you can help. Find somebody in need, because you never know when you're going to help somebody that's actually going to help you and move your spirit as you're helping somebody else.
Amazing talk. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. All right. Angelica, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn, but I grew up all over Long Island, New York. Long Island.
Tell me about your childhood.
Yeah, wow, that was quite the tale. It's so weird talking about it now that I've like kind of made peace with it, but still, yeah. Whew. So I was born to this woman, my mother. She, looking back now, like I'm not a professional, but in my opinion, narcissistic traits, like, wow. So when I was really little, I do believe she loved me. But as I grew, and, you know, like when children, they start developing, you know, personalities. And I've been told by other family members later on in life how I guess I started taking on like personality traits of my father, which was never in the picture. I never met the man. So I think that kind of set her off to start like just feeling a certain way about me negatively. And then, oh my goodness, school. So it turned out I had learning disabilities. That made her like really nasty towards me. And then I remember one time, a teacher had contacted her telling her like I wasn't doing my homework, which I wasn't because I didn't even know how to do it. And so my mother sat down with me, like, all right, we have to do your homework now. And she was all mad and pissy about it. And so I had these math problems. So I'm doing all the math problems, and there was this one problem I just couldn't figure it out. It was like division or something. And after the fifth time, she just backhands me in the face. My nose explodes with blood. And I'm just like, she's like, now you're just fucking doing it on purpose and blah, blah. I was like, and then she's like, I'll just fucking do it myself. And then so she did the one math problem for me. And that's the kind of just constant, just anger directed at me. And then when I made a best friend, my best friend was Black. Now in this town, Ronkonkoma, that I lived most of my childhood with my mother, predominantly Caucasian. So because my father was some type of Latino, which I don't know till this day, but and then so I wasn't quite white enough for the white kids, and then my friend who was Black, they didn't like her either. So we bonded over that, like, all right, if no one's gonna like us, fuck it, we'll be besties. So that was that. And then when my mother found out, it was just so brutal. My mother was very racist and would start calling me a nigger. Go hang out with your fucking nigger family, and blah, blah, blah. Like, she was not the best lady. Very mentally, emotionally, and physically abusive towards me until the age of 12, 13. I was removed from my house by Child Protective Services because neighbors would like just see me running from the house bloody all the time. So there were like a few visits from Child Protective Services, and then like the fourth or fifth visit, they just finally removed me from the home. And then out of the frying pan into the fire. And then being in foster homes and group homes, like there was one time like waking up in the middle of the night and there's like a foster brother, like another guy in there, in bed with me, like molesting me, like, ugh. So then there was like that whole part of my childhood that was pretty brutal. And then there's just so many things like then throughout high school, just, men that I guess could read and prey upon the fact that I was just so messed up, a messed up child.
Soft White Underbelly is about giving people a space to tell their stories, even when these stories challenge what we think we know. Ground News shows us different perspectives in the media, which is why Ground News is a perfect sponsor for my channel. In a world where algorithms censor much of the information we receive, some of the most important stories get missed from our news feeds. Ground News highlights local news from around the world, giving you an on-the-ground perspective that national coverage might miss. The app and website empowers you to form your own opinions by presenting you with every article published on any news story worldwide. My favorite part of the app is the data it gives you on each news source as you read it, such as where it leans on the political spectrum, a factuality rating indicating how subjective their printed reporting tends to be, and who funds it. I particularly like their blind spot feed, dedicated to showing you news stories that are underrepresented in the mainstream media. You can check this all out by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link below. It's easy to forget how much bias can shape the reality we live in. And in a world where our attention is constantly being fought over, my Vantage Plan easily helps me keep up with more important stories slipping through the cracks. So I encourage you to check them out at ground.news/SWU. Subscribe through my link or download the mobile app and enter promo code SWU to save 40% off their Vantage Plan. And by subscribing or even gifting it to someone you know, you're helping hold the media accountable and helping my channel directly. Thank you for watching.
That, come on to you like a wolf in sheep's clothing, and then, getting me into other just adult situations that no, like 14, 15, 16-year-old girls should be involved in. So yeah, that was hard. I did graduate high school with a high school diploma. That's as far as my education goes. I did try college a few times, but would drop out looking around like, these are the people that I'm going to share a workforce with. I'm like, fuck that. And I would leave. But when I graduated high school, a friend of mine, and I graduated from Stony Brook, Ward Melville High School in Stony Brook. And my friend Julie, her mother let me live at their house while I finished my final year, because I had gotten emancipated from being a ward of the courts of New York. So that was nice. And I was supposed to go to college then, right after, but then I had a full ride because I was a ward of the New York State court system. The college contacts me like, okay, we can't take you in this year, but we'll take you in the following year. So I'm like, cool. I'll go hang out in New York City and live there for a year. I never went to college after that. I mean, later on in life, but I didn't go to that college. And yeah, that's where I found heroin. And I self-medicated for a good 10, 13 years. Like I would get clean for a little bit, but then I'd just fall right back into it. And it was funny, the other night when I was driving around with my friend Jonathan, I'm like, oh, I've been here, because all the street names. Back in 1989, when I was like 18, 19 years old, I came out to Los Angeles. I wanted to live here, and I was coming to see a friend, and she lived in a apartment condo thing over on La Cienega and Fountain area. Because when I was over there the other night, I'm like, whoa, these street names, nothing looks familiar, but the street names all were very familiar. And I'm like, oh, I became a really bad meth head for a few months living with this friend of mine. And then so I was like, all right, I can't live like this. And I did go back to New York. And then, yeah, I was like living in squats out there. I stayed at C Squats, Glass House Squat. And then there was this one squat was I kind of had a permanent area called Swamp Squat. This building was like, I guess it was a practice building for law enforcement and the fire department, unbeknownst to us. But so it was called Swamp Squat because on the like sub-level, it was like, I guess like knee deep in like some kind of swampy water, and we'd have like crates stacked on each other, making like a pathway so that then you could get to the upper levels where it was nicer. And I remember my room was like way up towards the roof, and then there was this like little tiny like metal ladder to get up there. And so I'm hanging out on the roof. Oh, we were all smoking angel dust on the roof. And then all of a sudden, the place gets surrounded by all of these like police cars and stuff. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? So now we're fucked up. You're like Marshmallow Man when you're high on angel dust. And so I'm like, we got to get out of here, because then we could see the police exiting the vehicles and like coming up to the building. I guess they're like clearing out. They would do that to squats, like clear them out and stuff. So I'm like fucked up, and I'm like so scared going down this like rickety tiny metal ladder. And then we finally get to the bottom, and then we like went down this other ladder down the side of the building. We didn't want to go back inside. And so we went through a hole in the fence, and then we're just sitting out there watching the police just swarm this place and like getting everybody to come out. And then we realized later on in the day, like, wow, I hope they got the people that were living really far down, because there were like tunnels. If you went like across those like the milk crate pathway out of the swamp part, there were like tunnels, and then people had rooms and stuff throughout there. And I don't know if hopefully, I mean, eventually I'm sure they all got out. But yeah, and then a week later we went looking by, and they had everything boarded up, and it was like, there was our home. And but then yeah, just going around living on the streets as a kid.
Do you feel like that lifestyle that you had taken on at that age was a product of like the sexual abuse and the treatment from your mom?
Of course, yes. Because, you know, like I went right into drugs. That was like the thing. It like self-medicated. Like it took all the pain, all the hurt, all the terrible way I felt about myself, because I felt like I was garbage, because that's what my mother drilled into me. I was nothing. I was ugly. I was stupid, you know. And then between the mental, physical, emotional abuse from that woman, I was a hot mess.
Were there addicts in your family?
I'm not sure. I had an Aunt Linda, not my blood relative. She was married to one of my mother's brothers. And I know she was like, she did drugs, and she would drink a lot, because like we'd see them like holidays, you know, Christmas, Thanksgiving and stuff. And I just remember her always just being like off in a corner, just like nodding out. And she was my favorite relative too. I loved her, but she ended up, I heard, passing away of a heroin overdose. So yeah. And then that was like one of the things, like when I was on drugs for so long, I mean, for me, like 10, 12 years is a long time. And like I would get clean, you know, go into rehab over at any given hospital in Manhattan that was taking in new patients, sometimes like long waiting lists and stuff. And I'd go in and I'd get sober for a while, but I wasn't healing myself then. I was just going to rehab to get off of the heroin. But then if you don't fix like what's going on in your head and your heart and your spirit and your soul, yeah, you're just going to keep going back. And I remember the last stint in rehab I did, there was this older woman who was like, "You're so beautiful. You still have a chance. Don't turn out like me. Heal yourself." And that kind of stayed with me. And then But it wasn't the trick, because then I was living with this chick who was originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she was living we were living on St. Mark's between First and A. Oh my God, that apartment, it was like a nice big like 1-bedroom apartment. And it was like $300 a month. Now that apartment's probably like $3,000 a month. But so I ended up getting back into heroin again. She was doing both heroin and meth. And yeah, I didn't like the meth. The meth, that I was cured of that here in LA when I was 18. But then she had friends from Minneapolis come, and they were staying with us. Tim and, his friend. Oof, I'll tell you, I'll get to that part about the friend. But so Tim and his friend, they're staying with us. And they were like, wow, you guys are really bad off. You're welcome to come back to Minneapolis with us. And, you could get clean there. So we're all gung-ho, like, yay, we're going to Minneapolis. We're going to get clean this time. It'll be great. And so the day comes, like a few days later, the day comes where we're going to drive out in their truck and van back to Minneapolis. And then the girl that I was living with was like, no, we're not going to Minneapolis. And I'm like, no, but I still want to go. So Tim was like, if she wants to go, we already promised the both of you that we would take you back to help you get your shit together. But if she wants to come, we're going to take her. And then she got pissed and she's screaming. My stuff that I wanted to keep was already in the truck. She was like going to run down to the truck to like get my stuff out of it, but they beat her to it. So they took the truck and they backed it against like a brick wall parking, so she couldn't get in the back to take my stuff out. So then we ended up sleeping in the truck that night, not because, she was losing her shit. Misery loves company. You can't take her little misery buddy away from her. But I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I kept thinking about the lady the year prior, like, get out when you can. And I did. So then that's when I started living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that was hard. After I was sober for a full year, I was still so intensely depressed, and I thought that would never go away. And so I almost succeeded at killing myself. I took like 5 boxes of like over-the-counter sleeping pills. And my roommate found me. I was living at Tim's house, but not that roommate. There was this other lady who lived there. She found me and got me to the hospital. And that was crazy. And I was thinking about this the other day with Jonathan, like, wow, the amount of overdoses I survived, the amount of suicides I survived, and I'm still here. There's got to be something that I'm supposed to accomplish in this life to make it this far. So maybe this is it. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it took so long to get past that. And then through like just doing it, like learning the psychology of like addiction and depression. And it's like, when you're abused like that as a child, that like fucks up the pattern of thinking of your brain. And then, of course, the self-medication of the years of drugs, then that fucks up not only the wiring of your brain, but you're killing everything, including the pleasure, to kill the pain. And I look at it like addiction is taking a loan out on happiness with like 100% interest rate. So you're borrowing this happiness And as you're doing so, your serotonin and all like your natural happy chemicals, they're like, oh, we don't need to work anymore. We don't need to function.
And they'll turn off for
so
a year or
let's
two.
turn this off. You're getting too much elsewhere. So then once you stop doing the drugs, it takes a minute for, all that to come back.
Not a minute.
Yeah.
Minute sounds like it's
no,
okay.
No, I know. That's like our slang. But yeah, it takes a long time.
How long was it before you got those kind of feelings back?
Oh, wow. I want to, for me, I mean, everybody's different. I have years. It took years to just be comfortable in my skin, not like even happy.
That's the problem.
Just
with these drugs.
to like the constant like, oh, and yeah, and also having to like then deal with all of the emotions that you were suppressing through addiction. It was rough. I mean, I had 3 suicide attempts that I luckily survived. I'm happy to be here, grateful, my gratitude, because then I went off to like accomplish some other great things. But it's brutal. And to even tell people like, it gets better is so like just, because I mean, I was told that and you just don't believe it. Yeah, I wouldn't even know what to tell someone. Just keep pushing through the brutalness of it all. Eventually, like it does.
That's why so many people relapse.
Yeah, and it's hard. It is so fucking hard.
It's not just quitting the drug. It's quitting the drug and then writing out that year or 3 with no happiness.
It's hard. It's so hard because you think the worst is like over when you get through like the shakes and the vomiting and the thing, but yeah, then there's the whole mental and emotional trauma of it all, and like you stop growing emotionally and mentally and spiritually the second you pick up the drug. So you have to like pick up where you left off, plus the baggage of everything you also like shoved deep down. It's quite the journey. And if you can make it, like, fuck yeah. It's hard.
You made it out though.
I did.
How'd you do that?
I did, for the grace of God. And like, luckily having people that cared about me. Like when I was living in Minneapolis, when I was working through getting right with everything, that one suicide attempt that I was talking about before, I was working at Schindler's bookstore. It was like this big bookstore in Minneapolis. And my boss, Clem, him and his wife, Sarah, she worked in the office, in the money office, and he was like one of the general managers at the bookstore. They came to the intensive care unit. I was in a coma for weeks from that suicide attempt. They came every day and held my hand, and it was like, so sweet. And then, oh my God, I remember coming to, I had like the incubation tube with the charcoal and like everything. And I was like, and like hurled out the thing. And I'm like, no, I'm still here. Why? And I was just like, and now looking back, yes, you're still here. You're still here. So, yeah.
Do you have any regrets in your life?
I try not to think of anything as regrets anymore, because if I didn't walk through all of that fire, I couldn't have burned away all of that led me to that in the first place, if that makes sense. I don't know. There's some old like little saying, if you remove any thread from the tapestry, it unravels the whole thing. So I had to go through all of that to come to this place that I'm in today. And I feel lucky, gifted, and just blessed that I was able to walk through all that fire. Because
You have no children?
you either do or you don't, you know. And another thing that like kind of kept me hanging on was like the friends who like died and OD'd, or like this one would have endocarditis, get rushed to the hospital, get open heart surgery, and like live, but they were like the asshole of the group. And then and they had like 4 open heart surgeries from endocarditis, from shooting with dirty needles. And then the one sweet soul that was like just addicted for like several months gets endocarditis and dies on the table. And it's like, whoa, that's just like all these things. And the people that were just so special but didn't see their specialness dying around me. And yeah, it was hard.
Do you have children?
No, I never had children. Never married, never had children.
You've been in love?
Yes. Well, yes. Some not so healthy.
Is love even possible when you're so addicted?
That's the thing. Back then, I thought I was in love, but it could not possibly have been love.
Because the drug becomes the top priority.
Yeah.
Over your kids, over your lover, over your job, over your
everything.
Family.
And so I do believe that you can care about people when you're fucked up, but to be able to truly love someone when you're just not loving yourself is kind of impossible, in my opinion. You know, like, I don't know. But you ask different people different things, and you don't.
Let me ask you one last question.
Yes.
What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in all of this?
To not take other people's wounded lashings out at you personally, and to not take what they say to heart. If I knew that as a child, then maybe I wouldn't have been so brainwashed by my mother to feel so worthless about myself. And that just can go whether you're a child, teenager, adult, elderly. That's one thing that like keeps me grounded. Like if someone treats me like garbage, that's not me. That is not my burden to bear. And another good thing that I do, because I'm also intensely empathic, and I believe that to be what my mother's ill treatment of me trained me to be a reader. Like I could walk into a room and I can see who's sad, who's in pain, who's angry. Like it's my like defense mechanism that I have. For the longest time, it was such a curse. Slowly, I started kind of getting myself back. And I joined a band, Apocalypse Theater, and we would tour around and we would work the Burning Man Festival. So after like 3 years of like finally, like finding a nice little niche to like feel like, camaraderie and belonging, and getting over, like depression from the long time heroin addiction. It was great. And then 1 year, it was like the 3rd year we worked the Burning Man Festival. I met friends from New York that I hadn't seen in a while. And so after Burning Man, we were done doing cleanup. That thing takes 6 months to build up and tear down, and we would work out in the desert for 6 months. But then friends of mine, I'm like, oh, hey guys at Apocalypse Theater, I'm going to go back to New York for like a week or so just to visit and say hi. So I go, September 11th happens. Holy guacamole, lockdown. You couldn't leave the city, you couldn't get into the city, no airports, no buses, no trains coming into this. Like, it was martial law, military everywhere. I was trapped within a 4-block radius down in the Lower East Side. Oh, that was a whole thing. But then after the martial law was lifted and I was able to go back to Minneapolis, I call my friends. I'm like, okay, everything's cool. I can come back. So Apocalypse Theater, they were going to get a van, come to New York, pick me up and all the stuff I accumulated over the several months I was trapped there. And then we were going to tour on the way back. So it's like 3 days before they're going to arrive or leave to pick me up. And I go to the Roseland Tattoo Convention where I meet Dick Ziggin, who was the proprietor then of the Coney Island Circus Sideshow. And he sees me and he's like, oh, you look amazing. I mostly just had my face and hands tattooed and a couple on my arms. But he's like, that's so weird. It's like usually you save the face and hands for last. And you should be in my show. And I'm like, what show is this? He's like, the Coney Island Circus Sideshow. And I'm like, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. And he's like, you'll learn. And I'm like, fuck, I'm supposed to leave to go back to Minneapolis, but I really think I want to do this. I'm like, like push, pull in my head. And I'm like, this would make me really happy. So I call my friends and my jobs in Minneapolis the next day. And I'm like, actually, I'm staying in New York. And it was like kind of one of the best decisions I ever made, because I got really good at like fire performance, and I've got to travel the world doing that. And then it wasn't all rosy. I did kind of falter a little bit into alcoholism, because at first, like, going on stage in front of a live audience is petrifying. But then the alcohol, the liquid courage, that made it so much easier. But as time went on, a little drink before became a lot of drinks before a show, and I would start getting sloppy, and then I'd feel bad about myself. So then I ended up like finally like putting aside the alcohol. And now it's like great. And now I'm a great influence. Now I tour a lot with the Squidling Brothers Circus Sideshow. And we just got off a tour and they were all kind of big drinkers. But then because I wasn't drinking, I felt like I was a good influence. They ended up not drinking as much as they normally would. So yeah, that was my light at the end of the dark tunnel. And I still have my moments where I struggle with, ooh, this is a little nerve-wracking. There's some like champagne right there. Like, oh wow, I could tell. Vampires can tell other vampires. I know what they're on. I'm like, oh, I want some of that. But it's like, no, I remember. I just keep in the front of my mind what that path leads down, and it's not anywhere good.
No, it's not.
So yeah.
All right.
And that I love that I've found this whole fire performance, and that I get to travel and tour.
And you're still doing it?
Still doing it. Yeah, I just got off a tour doing it with the Squidling Brothers, and then we're doing a little short tour once I go back to New York from here.
Cool.
So yeah.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Awesome.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these 2 books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.